Hello, we have some big news. Today we're going to be talking about what's new in 2020 Office version 2022. To start out, we're going to do some basics. We're going to look at the new things inside your 2020 account and talk about what's coming with the 2020 content downloader and your manufacturers. But we'll spend the majority of today looking at 2020 Cap Complete and a lot of the new features to make your life a ton easier. And then, of course, I'll finish up with a few resources for continuing education as you move forward. So first up, let's look at the updated 2020 account. Now, your 2020 account can be accessed right from our website, 2020spaces.com, and you can sign in. You might also think of your 2020 account as your soft key or what you use to log into the software. And what's new in here is when you go under Manage Users, there's now an area called Manage Sessions. The cool thing about this is if you are working on multiple computers, you can actually log in and log out of your software. But what happens if you forget to log out? Well, now we have an option to release the session. So you don't have to physically go back to that computer to log out of it. You can release it right from your account. Now, a couple things to note. If you are a user on an account, you can only release your own session. If you are an admin on an account, then you will be able to release other user sessions to help them out. And notice that there is a note that there is a maximum of 2 session releases allowed per year. Don't worry, if you ever get stuck or need to exceed that, you can always reach out to our support team and they can help. Next up, let's talk about the 2020 Content Downloader. You might already be using the Content Downloader, but we are currently working on an update that will probably come out in the summer of 2022. And that update really will give you a ton of flexibility as you are getting ready to download your catalogs as you need them. So first of all, when you log into your 2020 account, you'll be able to access your content downloader that way. The first step, it will ask you to log in. That's a little bit different than today. But then once you're logged in, you'll be able to actually go through and select your manufacturers that you want to download. And it's so much easier to either go through this list and select your favorites through their visual looking at their logo, or there's an option to change this to a list, much like what we're used to today. And you can also type in and search for specific manufacturers. The other great thing is after you do your update, it will remember the manufacturers that you had previously downloaded, so you won't have to go through and repick any of those again. Now, talking about manufacturers and those updated catalogs, I also want to mention some of the catalogs that we've updated most recently. There are quite a few manufacturers that we've worked with. I love this example from National Public Seating, again, a manufacturer we've worked with recently to update their catalogs. This is a rendering that they did in 2020 Visual Impression, but they're not the only ones. In the last year, we have updated literally hundreds of catalogs to make sure that you are getting access to the latest and greatest for educational products, healthcare products, seating, I mean, you name it when it comes to office furniture. Nobody has more catalogs than 2020 does. Now, if your favorite manufacturer is missing from this list, or you're working with a new product line and they're not in 2020, I'd love to introduce you to 2 people that can help you with that. Stephen and Mark have joined us recently. They are new to our team and we love working with them because they're out there talking to all our manufacturers, making sure catalogs are up to date. At the end of the day, they want nothing more than for you to have the easiest and best catalogs to work with. So don't hesitate to shoot them an email. But like I promised, today we're going to be spending a bit of time jumping in the software. So a quick highlight on some of the new features in version 2022. Depending on the software that you're using, 2020 Cap Complete has had a handful of new features added, like the commands MV hide, save all, associative array, CAD standards, and check standards. These are all very common CAD functions. And then 2020 Cap now supports AutoCAD 2023. But this first feature that I'm going to demonstrate, the new basic workspace in 2020 Cap Complete, is probably one of my favorites. Just for a little bit of context, before I open the software, just know that historically, if you've been using AutoCAD or any CAD-like tools for a while, we probably learned using all those little tiny toolbar buttons or some of the typed commands. And a lot of those commands are still there, and they're now known as a classic workspace. So what you see at the very top of the screen is kind of that old school kind of million little tiny buttons, very overwhelming to learn the very first time you open up the software. But over time, the drafting and annotation workspace came out, which just made it a little bit easier, grouping things together on a ribbon. If you were like me, took a minute to transition to that, but then once you're used to it, it's pretty simple. But I have the best news. There's now a drafting and annotations basic workspace, which again is still leveraging the ribbons, but simplifying it even further. So let's take a look. So here we are in 2020 Cap Complete, and a workspace can be accessed a few different ways. One of the easiest ways when you first open the software is just looking in the quick access toolbar. And you can see there's those 3 different workspaces: Classic, Drafting and Annotation, and Drafting and Annotation Basic. Basic is what I'm actually in right now. So let me step back just to 2D Drafting and Annotation. And you'll notice it looks similar, but there's a whole lot of toolbar buttons that popped open and a lot more buttons on the 2020 Office toolbar, as well as quite a few other tools. So you still have access to this if this is what you like working with and this is what you're used to. But now you can switch to Basic, which just simplifies it. And what we've done is we have selected the most common tools that designers use when working with our software when specifying office furniture. So you have your home ribbon with a lot of your common draw and modify and layer and all the very, very common CAD tools. Of course, our 2020 Office ribbon, where again, we have most common tools as they're related to 2020, and then a few additional tools under the Help menu. But for the most part, you'll probably just have the 2020 Office window open. Like I said, if you like that classic workspace, you can go back to it. Want to rewind in time for a second? We can click on Classic. It's going to switch our screen to all those lovely buttons, but I'm sorry, I need to find my glasses really quick. Now, if you switch this, notice that that quick access toolbar is something that didn't exist back in the classic mode. So you can also jump between your workspaces in that bottom right-hand corner by clicking on the gear. And there's those 3 workspaces again. So let's jump back to Basic. Very easy to navigate back and forth between them. You can pick your favorite, but I think you'll find that the Basic workspace will really grow on you quickly. Now, next up, let's talk about the next feature called Dynamic Block Palette. This is something just to really streamline and help you with the basic space planning when you're thinking about the room. In today's example, I've borrowed a drawing that was actually submitted in our Inspiration Award contest. So thank you, Jenna. In this drawing, you can see there is a hint of architecture, we'll say, which in this case, I've got a doorway. I don't have any specific window placement right now, but here's the benefit to using the new dynamic palette. I'm going to go up to the 2020 Office ribbon and look for Dynamic Palette under the block info area, and notice that we have curated a few very common graphics for you that you can use to help with some of this basic space planning. So if you don't already have a door, for example, sorry Jenna, I'm going to take out your door. I can go ahead and select this door Imperial. It has it on my cursor. Of course, this is going to come in on whatever layer that you're on. I didn't change my layer, so it's just showing in white, and then I can snap it into place right now just using endpoint. You can trim up the lines if you'd want, but the best part about these graphics is you'll notice there's a lot of little grips or shortcuts that show up on them. So notice this little arrow. I can set the angle of the door if I'd like to adjust that. There is another arrow for the direction of the swing. And just, again, very quickly helping me not having to go and draw all of this manually by hand. Of course, I can also change the size. I was very lucky. This was the common default of a 3-foot, so I don't need to edit it, but I can change that either here on the screen or in my attributes. You can see we also have a double door and a window to get you started. Okay, the next new thing, you might already have a hint of this because you can see it on the screen already. It's our new layout tab. At the very bottom, notice that there are a handful of preset layouts. And let me actually close our dynamic palette just for a little more screen real estate. There we go. Now we can see those. So we've pre-populated the most common layouts that you may want to use. And a layout, just in contrast to what we've been working in model space, is kind of think of this as like the presentation that you want to show. So notice this comes with a template that you can utilize if you'd like, but a couple tips or techniques, you can just simply double click in here to adjust the zoom, the size. You could zoom extents if you needed, whatever you want to be able to quickly adjust this to show that space adequately. And then notice down at the bottom where we have a very simple template, you can just double click and update these values as needed. So for our project name, let's call this small office, and that will automatically update our example. Now don't worry, if you're a really savvy user and you already have templates set up, you can make that your default. You don't have to use these. These are just great for anyone who's brand new to Cap Complete, or if you just haven't had a chance to set up your own templates, they will come ready to use, and there's a number of sizes and styles available for you very, very easily. Of course, now that we've got these great layouts set up, this also means we've simplified some of the print settings. So when you go up to print or plot, there are a number of options that are now preset for you. One of them is it will be defaulted to print to PDF. Of course, you can change that if required, but it will also read your paper size and your orientation that you had last selected in your layout. It will automatically know that in your plot. So in here, notice the layout is automatically set to landscape, and we're printing to 8.5 by 11. It knew that because of that simple layout. So just, again, making things really, really easy. If we preview this really quickly, you'll even see, you can double check what everything looks like before you print it, but it even set this to monochrome, which was preset back in that print setting. So just trying to make your life a little bit easier so you don't have to go through and reset all of these things every single time. Okay, I hope you really, really like those tools, but don't worry, there is more to learn. If your team is growing and you're adding a new designer and you'd like them to learn Cap Complete, you can always go out to our training platform out on learning.2020spaces.com/office-us, and you'll see we have a number of training classes available here. Now, many of these classes are instructor-led or going step-by-step with exercises, but in addition to our paid classes, we also have a lot of continuing education classes too. So you can come out to the training platform, log in. Now the first time it will ask you to register. Sorry, this is not connected to your 2020 account just yet, but to register that first time, you just need to enter your email and set up a password. And what you can do is come in here and look under 2020 Office Resources. This resources section is great as you are trying to stay up on new features or just simply look for a specific question. These videos, webinars, and training courses are all included with your software subscription, so there's no additional pricing. We also have collaborated with a lot of industry experts and interviewed them on various topics, so definitely come back and check that out. But if you're ever looking for a specific topic, you can even search for it at the top of the screen. So if you know you're looking for something specific about Cap Complete, notice it will pull up all the courses that we talk about Cap Complete. Of course, if you or anyone in your team, especially if your team is growing and you have some new designers, if you're looking for training, definitely check out our training platform. And if you catch this video before the end of June, we do currently have a promotion for 10% off if you use the code THINKBIG. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just want to mention one last thing. If you haven't already joined, we do have a Facebook group online just for 2020 Office users. So this is anyone who uses 2020 Cap, 2020 Cap Complete, 2020 Visual Impression, 2020 Worksheet, 2020 Giza, any of our Office tools. We'd love to see you out here. We can help answer any questions, or you can just network with others in the industry as well. I appreciate you guys taking the time today. Thank you so much. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions in the future. You can contact me, Vanessa, at office.training@2020spaces.com. Thanks.